Hello, and welcome to episode 18 of the Gluten-Free Psychiatry Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Williams. Today's topic is complementary and alternative medicine for sex and love addiction, persistent genital arousal syndrome, and hypoactive sexual desire disorder. So whether you never want to have sex at all, or you're having unwanted orgasms, maybe pain during intercourse or orgasm, or you have sex or love addiction, or any combination of those things, this episode is for you. Now, this is sort of a two-part series. It's really expected and hoped that you would go back and listen to episode 17 that was on the ancient technique of male to female healing. Because this is complementary and alternative medicine, we're going to do two things. I'm going to teach you the mainstream on sex and love addiction first, okay? And then I'm going to bring in complementary technique of ancient male to female healings, and it's going to give us open up access to therapies for conditions that almost have no hope. There's not a lot people can do besides, for example, mood stabilizers, the seizure medications for persistent genital arousal syndrome, where people are having orgasms all day long. They have documentaries about this, and they're having it on camera, on accident. They don't want it. It's unwanted. The problem is it's in shame and secrecy. Where do they go for help? They feel different. Or less than, or it's just completely distracting, making them dysfunctional. And then they grieve the loss of their quality of life, and their activities of daily living are affected just like you had any other kind of problem. PTSD or tinnitus. Doesn't matter the diagnosis, it matters how much it's crushing your soul. So I'm hoping that you're going to zoom out from recent millennia here and get some ancient techniques to mix in with these viewpoints to get healthier and balanced and discover some of your own power. That's the goal of this. All right. So typically, these conditions do have some things in common, whether it's addiction or even pain during intercourse. A lot of times in the history is trauma. And so in trauma, especially child abuse, different kind of interpersonal assaults, what happens is you get the blending together of both the sexual behavior that's not based in love, right? And you get the mixing of a male-female energy, and it gets confused. The two get confused. Some people just hate men, or just can't stand women, or something like that. And they'll just lump everybody together into one whole gender because they have not separated out what happened to them from the energy of that, and whether or not the energy might hold some value for your health and recovery, you know? So if a father is abusive, it's real hard for that person to grow up and love their heavenly father, because the only impression of an earthly father was bad. Very similar. They haven't separated the energy of the people from the intent and what was actually happening to them. They're all separate things. And that's how you work your way back into healing and recovery, so you can be in a positive vibe all day again, or at least most of the time, or at least for parts of your day. Maybe recover the rest of your day if you get thrown off and start off bad. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to remind you there was an earlier episode about the male brain not developing until age 33. And guess how old you are when the female brain fully matures? 25. So there's quite a big gap there, 8 years difference, and quite a bit older than we ever thought. The brain is still developing, and it works off of dopamine. I've got a separate earlier podcast about that, about dopamine dysregulation disorder. I'm going to bring that back again, because all addictions are chemically the same in the brain, and they very much relate to the dopamine pleasure reward center of our brain. We control that in our learning and with our choices and what lessons we choose to take from each situation. People can experience the same event and take it away two different lessons from it. And we are training and choosing our rewards in our chemical brain, so that dopamine then becomes the cement which your long-term memory sticks. So you're starting to see, if you've listened to all my podcasts, including creative visualization, how we can get at the same problem from a lot of different angles. And that I'm trying to not only help you feel better and not waste so many times at appointments that aren't helping you. Maybe you try Reiki, it doesn't help. Acupuncture, it doesn't help. Massage doesn't help. I want to help you pinpoint what will help you fastest. So I'm going to go over a couple of mainstream things here for sex and love addiction. A lot of people don't realize that, There are separate 12-step fellowships for each one of those. Sex and Love Addicts is separate than Sex Addicts Anonymous. They're two different textbooks, and you should read both. The real difference is what love addiction is. I find this fascinating. Love addiction is that addiction to intrigue. Say your hormones are throbbing in high school or college, and you make eyes with someone that you like, and there's just a little few seconds of flirting back and forth, and then that's all you see them that day. But maybe you see them on a regular basis in the library, so you let it go that day. But you kind of like them, you made eyes, and it seemed like they were positive back at you, and that's all you know right now. And it's just a little bit of hope. See, the spark of hope. That is a flood of all kinds of neurochemistry. And think about the dopamine reward, how much pleasure you have. You're not afraid of it, you like it. So you go home, you learn the lesson. That was fun, that was positive. I choose to believe that's positive, even though my feelings highly agree. The hormones kind of take over. And all you can think about that night is that person. What do you want to do? You're planning your wedding. That can become an addiction itself. And if the addiction to intrigue is problematic and is a full disorder, then it can be very muddied up with sex itself. It can be in the absence of sex. Most people have both. If they have the love addiction, they have the sex addiction too. And they're separate recovery fellowships so that you can go and not be alone. And I recommend it. I've got the links here in the show notes, episode 18. Read the textbook on it. If you have any questions, if you're looking at porn too much, okay, read the textbooks on it at the very least, and go to a meeting. I know you're not going to go to a meeting, so I'm going to tell you that they don't publicize their meeting locations for sex addiction just anywhere, okay? They publish a point of contact, and you have to call or email that person and tell them you want to go to the meeting. And they'll say why. And you have to tell them that you're not from the media, that you're actually interested in it, you might have it, you want to learn more about it. And that. And then nothing else is expected. That's it. They just have to prove that you're not from the media. And if you are from the media, it's sort of like an undercover cop. If you don't disclose that there, then that's a breach of all kinds of things. I'm not sure you'll go to jail, but you should. Anyway, it's kept anonymous for a reason. That's it. So then the person on the phone or the email tells you the time and location, and you just go show up. Once you know the place, there's nothing more secretive about it. It's just like all the rest of the 12-step fellowships, where they encourage you to get a sponsor and work through the 12 steps. And once you get through the 12 steps, then you turn around and sponsor other people. And that's another mind shift. Just like all the other addictions, there's 200 or 300 12-step fellowships for everything, from smoking to gambling. It doesn't matter the dopamine, the chemistry is the same in the brain. And mixed fellowships work too, because the dopamine is the same in the brain. So Celebrate Recovery could work, without such stringent requirements, like the absolute most successful 12-step organization on the planet, plus 80 years now, Alcoholics Anonymous. And our culture attacks humility. Think about that. Humility, not humiliation and embarrassment, but more of a humility. We want to be smart. We want to say what we learned on YouTube today. People just jabberjaw like they read Wikipedia. They're walking around little thesauruses, showing off their knowledge constantly. Oh, have you seen this report? Did you know this? Did you know? And there's a tit for tat. There's not a humility of I don't know, or maybe let me check that out, or putting any kind of qualifiers like maybe, I don't know, sometimes, probably, I think. With the absence of that is an arrogance, practically speaking. And the essence, the underlying spiritual foundation underneath the Alcoholics Anonymous traditions, but that's the original. All addictions is humility. And so you have to recognize that if you have an attitude, if you're cocky, if you argue, if you have to have the last word, if you're not an addict yet, that's an attitude trait that's going to serve you very well in the drunk tank. I'm just trying to make light of it. But you can't, because this is a tough subject. So you've got to read Patrick Carnes' book, Don't Call It Love, Recovery from Sexual Addiction. He tells his own story. I heard him speak at a meeting when I was in Houston, and this guy was awesome. Because he started his own 12-step fellowship, but he's a therapist. He's a psychologist with his own take on the 12 steps. And I think that's pretty cool. I kind of am too. I come from a 12-step background as well. But I have a different take on PTSD therapy. I think we're doing it wrong by making people talk about it, doing prolonged exposure, and ignoring the subconscious mind in the flashbacks or electromagnetic waves. You're just picking at the wound without telling people that there's another layer that's holding the memory in the first place because you don't even know. I think American psychology's pretty in trouble when it comes to PTSD therapy if they don't at least know that. There's a place rarely for prolonged exposure, but without the full, holistic, and ancient integrated functional psychiatry explanation, I think we make some of these people worse. We run off half the ones that try it, and the other half won't come in. We do help a lot of people. I know at the VA where they didn't know anything like this, I'm talking now, just 5 years ago, they love you. And we helped a lot of people, at least 2/3 of everybody that walked in the door. But I'm after everybody else, and an explanation that fits for us all, including the therapists, including the providers and the psychiatrists or the nurse practitioners I've known that had PTSD and child abuse of their own and started having transference reactions in the middle of appointments. So that's part of the recovery cycle too, is you're the wounded healer, and then make the best healers. That's why my advice is so unique, isn't it? We're beautifully broken, and God puts us together. We put ourselves together, we stay grumpy. I know I did. All right, let's get to the mainstream treatment for sexual addiction. So psychotherapy is always recommended in the treatment plans. I've never seen one sex addict in my dozen plus years of working in psychiatry that psychotherapy was not part of the treatment plan for a sex addict. It always is, because there's more to be revealed about the early childhood. It's usually almost always trauma related to throw someone off the natural course. If someone's not been exposed to trauma or porn or anything sexual related, children don't naturally do these kinds of things. Okay? What naturally happens is trauma is covered up because the kids immediately go play and act normal after anything happens. And if you watch Hollywood movies like Stranger Things, they'll convince you there in season 2 that, oh, you're just stuck with it. Just don't talk about it. Best thing to do is just let it be. Let the time pass. Yeah. Let it soak in there so we can manipulate them later when they're adults. Don't teach the third graders how to heal, because then we can't control them. Right? So that's a little bit of a tangent and a little view of my private community to come. Now that I have your attention on sex addiction, here we go. As far as medications go, mood stabilizers, and even naltrexone, some of the same medicines we would give to, say, opiate addiction, works the same. For example, naltrexone is made for alcohol withdrawal, and it has a monthly shot called Suboxone, which is great if you have alcohol cravings, but they're starting to study it for other addictions. So I'd be open to prescribing naltrexone for you if I needed to, or my favorite mood stabilizer. The generic name is oxcarbazepine. The brand name is Trileptal. That's my favorite because if you'll go back in an earlier episode, I had the anger management simplified, and I discover the Trileptal in a 2-minute speech helps turn prisoners around that are very violent. When they really want to change their mind and change their impulses, a mood stabilizer acts like a clutch. Let's say you're on a racetrack with a car in manual gear and you're changing gears. You have a clutch there. And sometimes you want to subtly go up. Sometimes you want to subtly go down. And the use of the clutch is helpful in both directions in speeding up and slowing down. Exactly how and when you apply it, right? And so if you get angry, if you have an impulse, if you want to, do some behavior related to sex and love addiction, a mood stabilizer might give you 10 seconds to think about it before you start acting. And then if you've got some kind of action plan in place, you can pull out your notes and say, yeah, I will do that. Let me just walk outside for a minute. Not believing it's going to work. But you've got to start changing the behavior in the heat of the moment. For any addiction, for any panic attack, for any PTSD trauma flashback, any memory of your parent, any of these things, we need to change the behavior. Why not release it? Why not release the electromagnetic wave? So there's a complementary and alternative approach. If you're having electromagnetic wave flashbacks, emotion swings as you're trying to withdraw from pornography or unhealthy relationship attachments, maybe you're cheating on people or dating multiple people that think you're interested, or just flirting with a lot of people and you're starting to blur the lines and do things that are not your character. It's not who you want to be. It's not maybe how you're raised to be or how you choose to be in the future. You know, a mood stabilizer might slow you down so you can change your behavior pattern for that first 10 seconds and basically reach out to help. Go to 12-step recovery and reach your hand out after that meeting and introduce yourself and trade phone numbers. And most of them have a way to set up the right numbers at these 12-step meetings. If you're new, some places will pass around everyone's phone number on it, and it'll get to you at the end, and everyone who wanted to has already given you their number. So whether you want to drink alcohol or gamble, whatever their addiction is, take a breath, take 10 seconds or a mood stabilizer if you're already on it, it'll help, and start calling your phone list. And the way to use a phone list is to call that first person and tell them what's going on and leave a message and tell them to call you back, please. And that's all you need to say. And then call the next one. And you just work your way down until you get somebody on the phone. And 30 years ago, 34, when I got started, they said to get 10 on the list. And I used to do that. Carry 10 phone numbers with me all the time. I used to type it up on a typewriter and staple it and cut it small like a little booklet. I was a nerd because that was my lifeline. And 2 years in, off of alcohol, I joined the Army and started traveling all over the world. And I got good at contacting the meetings and knowing what their locations and address, phone number were before I arrived in country. And that's the only way I could handle the anxiety of traveling and missing my family and all that. So my first winter in Germany in 1993, I slept in the 12-step hall just to keep the doors open in case anybody wanted to come. And I had peace doing that, felt good about it, and no one came, and that was okay. They liked it, and they announced it at the meetings that was there for everybody. If someone needed to come by and talk, I was there. And that sense of purpose took me out of myself. And that is a huge piece. Get out of yourself and into helping others. All right. Most addicts have to suffer greatly to become honest enough for long-term recovery. It's hard to have a life partner or a sex partner if you have addiction because there can be no secrets here. You can't have secrets in your intimate relationship. You're as sick as your secrets. And you may try to work around that if you're an addict, but you'll run into it. And decades from now, you'll agree with me. So there's a couple options besides 12 steps for people to go to, but the 12 steps are the most successful. It's the people that want to do it that are hard to find. There's two others that weren't or not available decades ago. One is called Smart Recovery, and the other is called Celebrate Recovery. Okay? Smart Recovery is a psychology-based program where they use all the same terminology that counselors use. I did not learn this stuff until I went to school for it, and I think it probably would have helped me growing up, particularly in communication in close relationships. Celebrate Recovery is a church-based program. So if you're a Christian or you're just open-minded, don't mind if Christians pray for you, then it doesn't matter what addiction or sin or hang-up you have, you can go to Celebrate Recovery. They really have spread all over the United States now, probably international by now. But I've got links to the websites for both Smart Recovery and Celebrate Recovery right there. Celebrate Recovery is a little bit different because they have a 3-hour program. It's not 90 meetings in 90 days. It's one meeting a week, but it's 3 hours long. The first hour at the big churches, they're usually done at churches. The first hour is everyone is eating a meal together. So it's like a fellowship. And the second hour is a group discussion where everyone's in the auditorium. And the third hour is small groups break out after that. And I've seen veterans groups, PTSD groups, women's groups, men's groups, and things like that. And so I recommend you go get certified in emotion code or learn energy healing and then go plug into a church-based group like that. Help me start a healing revolution right there in your Celebrate Recovery class. You can be sober and heal people with a very addiction. Maybe their withdrawal will be a little easier because you'll be introducing a complementary and alternative medicine approach yourself. And so let me introduce what that is. I discovered this on accident. We did in a class group doing different techniques that it turns out I have somewhat of a healed male energy, cleared, healed, unselfish male energy. And in our society, that is beaten down. Masculinity is picked on. by the puppeteers, and so we don't see very many strong, especially white men on television anymore, except maybe Last Man Standing. Just kidding. They just show a bunch of weak men bent over backwards, giving everything away, looking stupid and dumb, and are worthy of hating. And that seems to be the theme of the script of all the stuff coming out of Hollywood, right? So it turns out it was way back in 1851. The Native Americans got together, a few tribes. I learned this in the basic training class for One Light Healing Touch from Penny Lavin, the director of the Healing Field documentary. And I have episode 10 as an interview with her if you want to go back and listen. But she's the one that taught me in her class that multiple Native tribes got together and said it was finally time in 1851 that they go ahead and give us feedback to the white man's culture, that they have noticed that there was an imbalance in male and female energy since the first white man arrived, and that there was sort of a problem, and they could see that developing in the culture. And so it's a traumatic, rough West. And the history books have all lied to us. We stole that land. There's U.S. Army that killed the natives. And I was an Army officer, and I never forgot that. So I feel like a sense of debt, particularly to the Cherokee. And so I always share one complementary and alternative approach that came from the Cherokee, sort of a way of a thankfulness and acknowledgement of the last people, at least in Texas, were natives that were helping people with holistic therapies, because we left that out when we followed Sigmund Freud and John Wayne. All right. And so go back and listen to episode 17 on the male to female energy healing itself. But if you were to add that to a sex addiction, what we noticed incidentally during this group class was just, let's say someone has been shut down, they're not interested in dating, maybe they've been through their heart broken or had sexual trauma, or for some reason they just don't want to date. And they thought about it, but it's just too much past energy, too much pain still. And they're not ready. They've shut it down for years. And just being in the presence of two things, healthy male energy, can waking up a desire to date again. And then doing some clearing work and having safe boundaries. So no weird tantric stuff like that. That can make someone worse. But standard psychiatric standards of care and professionalism with ethics and boundaries are normal. Because in psychiatry, it is a little bit like opposite day. When you do a mental health appointment, you can talk about the taboo things. You can talk about the hidden repressed thoughts that you don't want to bring up in public. Otherwise, how are you ever going to work on them, modify them, or let them go, or change them if they're bothering you? So we're used to that. In the presence of healthy male energy in an energy class, my energy helped at least 3 women have more transformations than any of us were expecting. Let's just put it that way. No one was expecting that, including dreams and rearrangements the next morning. Like real changes that I think as a psychiatrist I probably couldn't do. And so I'll keep tooting the horn for the basic training class. It's coming up again in January 2026. If you want to do a healing with me, I'm going to retake the basic training class, because here in a couple of weeks I start the master's class, and retaking the basic is part of the requirement. And I like it, and it's become sort of a support group for me. I'm making friends outside of the class that are real good people that send me healthy vibes and energy. It helps me maintain my vibes, if that makes any sense. They help me, encourage me to do this program, because a year ago I don't think I was able to do it. And they helped me release some of that stuff, including with my dog that had passed away, the service animal. You'll see the photos on my website. I don't talk about that one very much until they helped me. And then one morning I got up early. It was a rough night during the second weekend of the class. I think that energy was coming out. And I got up early. I couldn't sleep anyway. I had that problem. And I just got up. I said, it's time. I took my old dog's ashes out to the river and dumped the ashes and said my energy thanks and release. Came back into the class all day, and it seemed like that was a big plug in the jug. And now here we are. And I'm enjoying things again. I'm passionate. All my patients tell me, man, you're on fire. Listen to you. Man, you should be a preacher. And I don't even have to be told, because some of my faith comes out anyway. I feel like I'm back to the young kid at 19 with Pastor Roy Love down there on Fuquay Road, that Full Gospel Church in South Houston, Texas, off I-45. He said there's healing in the presence of the Lord, and we'd get excited and dance. They dance in the aisles, roll around on the floor, and speak in tongues, which I didn't understand all the way. I would do it a little different now, but I'm sort of missing my church talking about the Great Comforter all the time. So I believe their class, even though it's not taught by Christians, helping me in my own faith, in my own walk, because now I know the kind of church I want to go back to. And I didn't have that want to before. So if you've pushed everyone away, or if addiction has got them pushing you away, or maybe you have one of these rare sex disorders that's got you really isolated, and so you're missing out on connection and community and intimate relationships, not just sex, but the communication all around it, the intimacy, the fun, the jokes, the flirting, the little notes, someone caring for you and noticing you and accepting you fully, 100%. Then trauma will get in the way. All these diagnoses I've mentioned today will get in the way of that connection. You don't deserve to live like that, and you don't have to live like that. So I've got a couple of books here for you that I picked out. One is if your genitals won't calm down. If they won't calm down. If they won't calm down, you might need a therapy appointment too, especially with professionalism. But there's a journal and tracker here. This is called Journal 2, Healing and Persistent Genital Arousal Disorder. The next book is for the opposite extreme, if you're not interested at all. And maybe someone's interested in you, and mentally maybe you kind of want to, but no. First of all, I would say that's probably hormonal, and you should do ionic foot baths and get clear of that. You may have Roundup, and who knows what kind of plastic's in your body. But besides that, in psychiatry, it is a DSM diagnosis, Hypoactive Sexual Desire Disorder. And it's partially made up by the other person. If your partner doesn't care that you don't want sex, then you don't get the disorder diagnosis. So it's one of those political ones that bothers me. They'll probably change it eventually, because it's not a disorder for everyone. And why does a disorder of a person depend on what their partner's opinion is? If that were true in other things, like being psychotic, then everyone would be schizophrenic. You see what I mean? So I don't agree with the way we assign this. I would say most of the time, biologically and physically speaking, that the diagnoses are not accurate according to symptoms only. That's why the National Institutes of Health abandoned doing research on DSM diagnosis. Right in the middle of my training back in 2013, 2 weeks before the DSM-5 was printed, they turned their backs on them. And that was impressionable for me, so I've been questioning these diagnoses ever since. So I hope this summary of how would you integrate an ancient male-female healing into proper normal boundaries for psychiatry, where it's okay to talk about the taboo, but there's nothing sexual, no sexual behaviors in your therapy, not like tantric stuff, that can harm people. There might be good ones out there, and I'd be open to having one on the show so long as they're holistic and no other disciplines, but by that means I would just say, be encouraged. There's a lot of hope out there, and secrecy and being alone, that's the voice of the shadow self. And so look into alternative retreats. If you can do the Mankind Project, I think there's one called the Woman Within version of the Mankind Project. There's weird and interesting retreats that you can get involved with to try to help heal your own male-female energy, so you can walk proudly in your heritage, your culture, your ancestral roots, that you could dig deeper in your faith, and that you could find the greater comfort today, so that you can walk in a real-time peace going forward and have a clutch if you get a bad impulse. We're all going to get a bad impulse, but we've got to restrict what's coming in at us. We can't watch media all the time and not expect to repeat some of what we're seeing. Don't let them pick your mental image all the time. This has been the Gluten-Free Psychiatry Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Williams. Please visit mindshiftcare.com today to help spread global mental health.